And it's clear that in certain geographies, value is connectivity. Many customers, they are buying their first phone in their life. And in other geographic markets, value is perceived very differently. And it's a more complex relationship, far more pressure, far more expectation from the consumer who's been a consumer for quite some time, or indeed far more pressure from a business user who's been a user for some time. About 3 years ago, we analyzed the geographic footprint of the company, and it became clear to us that we had the traditional strength that came from the two original components of our company, Nokia Networks and Siemens Communications, made us very strong in the traditional European markets. We had started to embark into some of the clear growth markets in India and China, and had started to be quite successful, but for whatever reason of history had not been as successful in, quite frankly, the three most profitable markets in the world, the three most demanding markets in the world in many respects, the United States, Japan and Korea. So we put a conscious effort in place to focus on building our relationships with key customers in those markets. And relationships can be built either from the ground up, as we have done, for example, I think with SoftBank in Japan, or they can be built by acquiring some incumbency, as we are doing at the moment through the acquisition of Motorola, the networks business of Motorola, which is bringing us strong relationships with customers in the US and Japan. And most recently, we were delighted to achieve another one of those ground-up relationships, although very early days, in Korea. So from our perspective, we concentrated on all three markets, not to the detriment of other markets, but to recognize that there was value that we could bring, that there was value that we could earn in return by bringing that value, and it was something that was missing from our business, and we set a goal to work on it. And we're by no means complete. You know, we have a long way to go, but we're building the relationships with key customers in those markets, and we intend to have those relationships for a very long time. And as their businesses evolve, we'll evolve with them, and we'll continue to help them bring value to their customers.
What are the specific differences between those sort of demanding markets, the high margin but demanding markets, against those connectivity-oriented markets? What do you have to provide in terms of technology or other sort of elements?
Well, I think the basics. You need the basics in all markets. You need to have great technology. You need to deliver efficient, value for money network capabilities. Because all customers demand that. But in some markets, the consumer life cycle is moving on to greater and greater demand for social networking, digital communications, entertainment solutions, smartphone applications, mobile broadband, mobile TV, etc. And so each one of those adds a level of complexity. The challenges that companies in the US may face, for example, would be demand for smartphone service. And we put a great deal of effort in this past year into helping our customers understand how to manage communications with smartphones better. We think that we have a much smarter offering in terms of the signaling that allows smartphones to do the communications that they do. We know that we have that because we can measure it. So the demand in a high penetration smartphone market is clearly different to the demand in a 2G voice phone market. Spectrum efficiency is different in different parts of the world. Churn in the United States and in some other markets is a significant part of the cost of running your company. If you have 2% churn, you lose 25% of your customers every year. The cost of replacing 25% of your customers every year is a significant part of running the business. If we can help our customers deliver a better experience in those markets where that's relevant, then we're delivering value to them, they're delivering value to their customers.
In which carrier do you supply in the United States?
We have relationships with all of the carriers,
Okay.
but for different parts of their network. I think we're perhaps most famous for T-Mobile in the US, where they are rolling a very entertaining and aggressive communications program, advertising program in the United States to try and attract new customers to a faster network, which is based on our 3G technology. But we're also a significant supplier to Verizon and AT&T for high-speed, long-haul optical data, and we supply to a number of the other major customers on the North American continent as well.
And for Japan, you mentioned the SoftBank, and you also have relationship with Docomo.
Docomo is we are one of the LTE launch partners with Docomo, and we're putting a great deal of effort into getting them ready to launch LTE. And coincidentally, Motorola is doing the same for KDDI. So we would hope to find ourselves in the not too distant future where we're a major partner of all three of the major carriers in Japan.
Okay. Now, speaking of LTE, you have been providing the equipments for TeliaSonera in Sweden, who started LTE service last year in 2010, and also several other markets in Northern and Eastern Europe. How has your experience been in the LTE deployment in those markets?
So we are live with TeliaSonera in Gothenburg, which is obviously one of the major cities in Sweden. There was recently a very complimentary report published by a third party, I think it's Signals Research, that tested our live implementations in Gothenburg with one of our competitors' live implementations in Sweden, and we came out extremely favorably. I think that the data that was shown in the that was so we published that data today, but it wasn't. It was independent data. So it showed that I think on average we're between 46 and 49% better in. I think 46% better in downlinks and 49% better in uplink performance of our network versus the competition network, and I think that goes a lot to the architecture that we have deployed. You know, it's important. People think that communications networks are standards based and therefore they're not different. But the way that you build the product and the way that you think about the architecture can make major differences, as we've shown in this particular case. As we've also shown, by the way, in smartphone 3G situations where we know, again through independent research, that the load that our network will create in doing an instant message, for example, may be 49% less in signaling load than a competitor's network. Now that causes 49% more battery usage for the phone, and it creates 49% more congestion on the network. So we know that networks are different, and ours are the best.
Okay. But in case of Sweden, they have only been deploying in sort of modems. Is that correct? They don't have the handsets yet.
Not yet, no.
Okay. So when the handsets comes out, it's going to be another difference, do you think?
Well, it's the concept of an LTE network is that it's all IP, and that simply the handsets will be implementing a voice over IP, and so the underlying network performance, ours will still be better.
Okay. And lastly, do you have any new announcements at this show? Anything interesting for the future?
As we said at our press releases today or press conference today, the future changes every day. I think we had over the last week or so 10, 12 major announcements. So far too many for me to talk about now. And so many so exciting that why would I talk about the future when we haven't caught up with what we've already talked about? I think that from our perspective, helping our customers deal with the smartphone challenge, delivering smarter networks that help them deliver better value to their customers is critical. Helping our customers take advantage of this asset that they have, this fabulous network asset that they have that some of their competition doesn't have. The handset manufacturer doesn't own a network, and so if we can help our customers deploy new services that are attractive and valuable to customers, that brings revenue to our customers, and that's what we're in business for.